controversial one called Sound
Yes,
of
right.
Freedom. I don't know whether you've got a little, in a nutshell, what this is about, because I've been reading that people have been critiquing the politics rather than the actual movie storyline. What's the storyline basically around Sound of Freedom, and why is it, do you think, that Christians somehow or other are drawn to this?
Right. Well, so the story it's based on the true story of a Homeland Security federal agent, Tim Ballard, who what his specific role was within the Homeland Security realm is trying to bring down some of these pedophilia type movements that were going on around the United States, but then was exposed to the fact that there is all of this different trafficking of children and humans, specifically within the sex trade around the world. And so his efforts in trying to bring children out of that specifically, but then how they could draw attention to the fact that these things are going on. It is an awful part of, unfortunately, humanity that is out there. And so what we can do to kind of try and remedy that. And so it's a confronting film, but from a film critic standpoint, I really kind of stay away from kind of some of the external kind of discussions on the politics and all that, and look at just what is the quality of the film. It's a well-told story. And the thing I did like about it was that it showed you enough of what was going on without overdoing it. So they were respectful in the content as far as drawing you up to the point of kind of seeing the horrors of what are going to occur, but then they close the curtain soon enough with the subtlety so that you don't have to necessarily see or experience some of those things yourself. And so I felt that it was a well-told story. It was a really good quality story, but then on top of it, honestly, Neil, I hope I don't have to watch it again. Mainly, just it's one of those you watch for yourself, and hopefully you have action. You want to take action and get connected with groups that actually can do something about it. But what it leaves you with, it definitely is a long tail as far as the things you think about after you watch this film.
And there's some organisations, and thinking of Destiny Rescue, and I think we've got something coming up with Destiny Rescue and their thoughts on this film too. And I know you've drawn attention to Destiny Rescue and organisations like them who are actually in this space, rescuing children who are in those abusive settings. And so in some sense, when you watch a film like this, you're going to be drawn to say, what can I do? Because you'll perhaps even feel guilty if you do nothing. But these sorts of organisations, they're in that space. And so no doubt that's why they're actually saying, hey, this is a film that will draw attention to the sorts of ministry Christian work that we're involved in.
Exactly. Well, and so that there are answers, there are solutions. I mean, it is horrific that these sort of things do occur in our world, but the reality is that sin is still there. But thankfully, what we do have in Jesus and with what we have with the message of the Bible is a hope, even within all of those different horrors that are going on out there. But thankfully, there are organizations like Destiny Rescue where you can point people towards when you say you see a film like this, you go, there are those out there kind of doing it here. Why don't you partner with them so that you're able to know how you can take action with all of the emotions that you're going to experience after seeing a film like Sound of Freedom.
I read it's described as a sleeper hit. You might be familiar with that sort of terminology because a movie that's got a relatively low budget has grossed, more than 10 times what it was actually cost. A sleeper hit. It's one of those things, and I think it's been a surprise to people that this has been such a hit movie, and it's such a hit with Christians. Any thoughts around, what is the draw card from the Christian view?
Yeah, well, I think there's a few things. I mean, because it is amazing. I mean, Neil, the fact that this film has done more money than, say, Mission Impossible 7, more money than in the latest Indiana Jones film. It's done exceptionally well, which is even a surprise for those of us within the industry going, wow, what is going on? But I think that there's a grassroots movement of people kind of going through and supporting a film like this. But for a film critic position, on top of it, it's a good quality movie. I mean, for a low budget, they have a good quality cast. They really handle it exceptionally well. I would probably point towards the fact that I would see this as less entertainment and more as an education experience, because I wouldn't want to necessarily be entertained by this sort of topic on a regular basis, but I feel like what they've done respectfully is kind of educate people and then also hopefully move them to do action with groups like Destiny Rescue and others around the world who are trying to do all that they can to kind of help these children in these horrible situations.
So you've got the main actor, Tim Ballard, a special agent for Homeland Security investigations, and he arrests people who possess and distribute child pornography, and he realises that much of the problem of this evil trade is managed offshore and online.
That's right.
So it really throws a big spotlight onto where all of this is propagated. Coming back to, and I know you don't like to comment too much on the politics, listeners might have their own thought, but it's one of those sorts of films, and this is what I'm gleaning because I haven't seen the film either, but what I glean is that it's one of those films that calls for action. And maybe this is where it's divisive and even partisan, particularly in the United States. But if you don't support the call to action, then somehow or other you could be considered as condoning the child trafficking. I'm not sure whether I've got that actually all perfect in my thoughts, but it's one of those films that actually causes people to need to take action. And if you say, we're not taking action, then it's almost like you're condoning the activity. Any thoughts around that?
I don't know if that's necessarily would be fair if the people, because I think that you can't force somebody to go and take action after seeing a movie, when you're going to see a movie. And so I think that you should, I don't know how somebody can't walk out and go, I've got to do something, or I need to talk with somebody. Also, if you don't go out of this movie and just go hug your children and do all that you can to make sure that they're as safe as possible, I don't know how you could not do that. So as far as dividing the audience and forcing people to, labeling them because they don't take action, I don't think that's necessarily right in itself. While I think that it should be something where you should be compelled, especially if you're a Christian, to do something about it. And a lot of times, I think when you leave a film like that, you're left with, I don't know. What do I do and where do I turn? But thankfully, there are organizations that you can go to and actually be a part of as far as being a part of the solution, opposed to just kind of consuming the content itself. It does move this movie into a different category in the sense of being opposed to just being pure entertainment. This is definitely one that really should compel people for action. I think one of the reasons why it's done so well financially is because one of the action pieces is say, hey, and tell your friends to go out and see this movie, and then hopefully more people will be exposed to what's going on in the world, and hopefully people will be able to take action to stop it from happening if they can, but also to be praying for these people who are doing it.
As you say, not just an entertainment film, but something that is informative and a reminder that there are children who are being abused right now while you're watching a film like that. And so there is that sort of tug on the heartstrings, no doubt, to take some action. Hey, one of the organisations that does great Christian insight into films like this is Movie Guide. They've attributed the film's unexpected success to its wide demographic appeal and strong moral values. So when you think a film to be successful today has to push the boundaries on morality, here's one that actually supports a very strong morality, strong moral values around protection of children. And there's Movie Guide, and that's another great Christian organization. They're saying that's one of the reasons why this film is a success. Do you think that's the case?
Oh, definitely. Ted and his group, they've always done great work as far as really trying to using film as a means of kind of communicating the Christian message through all of these various stories. And I think that Movie Guide definitely has touched on something that we do. We want to go see movies that really relate with what we're doing, opposed to pushing the envelope, as you were saying, with morality. It's actually seeing a good moral center. But then on top of it, it's a good quality film. I think one of the challenges sometimes that where faith-based films tend to get a rap is because they may have a great message, but the quality of the film isn't that good. While this one is actually a well-told story, good quality film, very acted exceptionally well. But then on top of it, it definitely probably will encourage people and maybe even move people a little bit closer, especially as Christians, to seeing how the Christian faith can answer a lot of these problems of the world.
And quite a well-known star of the film too, Jim Caviezel. Lots of listeners will know him from other great big movie blockbusters like The Passion of the Christ. Is it the Passion? Was it The Passion of the Christ? No, it was.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yes,
that's where Jim was. Yep. So he was. Go ahead.
And of course, backed by and supported by and endorsed by a whole lot of other A-list movie stars.
That's right. Well, and even here in Australia, the release will be by Icon Films, which is Mel Gibson's kind of film production company. So they're the ones that are kind of helping in the production of that, along with Movies Change People. So they, it definitely has the right backing. I mean, there are. And that also obviously, too, will bring certain controversies for some because different names have different labels that they get throughout their lives. And so sometimes people can kind of jump on that as far as the controversies. But I would still bring it back to this is a good quality movie with a great message that is worthwhile seeing. I probably would say, Neil, for your audience, this does have a lot of mature content in it, and meaning this is not a movie for children. I would definitely I would encourage people just to kind of make sure that, mature teens and older would probably be the best as far as for this content, and just to be aware of.
One message, a caller rang through to suggest that the answer to the question, what can people do? Pray and fast. That can result in miracles, and we'll encourage that too.